So here's the sitch on the ATL box score today. Today we talk about Super Bowl stuff because, well, there's really not that much drama going on pertaining to the Super Bowl. We get into Pro Bowl, Senior Bowl, all the all-star bowls, you could say. Then we have Ned Kaish on the show to talk about college basketball. And then after that, that's our show today here on Midweek Pro Style. This is the ATL Box Score podcast with Alex Berger. It seems like nowadays all the new startups are born online and they develop online to very successful companies. And if you're in a spot right now where you are a small business owner or you're starting a company online and you need a place to grow your product and you need to be around your team on a semi-daily basis, then Spaces Midtown is the place for you if you have not considered work share spaces. They are leading and they are cutting edge in the work share space industry. Definitely check them out. They are here in Atlanta off of Peachtree Street. And to tell you more about that, we actually have the regional manager here with me right now, Steve Choi.
Thanks, Alex. That was very complimentary, the things you had to say. I really appreciate that. Absolutely. We're here to help professionals, entrepreneurs, business people, small companies, large companies, whomever that needs to get away from their home and create some productivity and get some work done. We have over 8,000 square feet of collaborative space, which is first come, first serve for individuals and small businesses to come utilize. And we also have over 40,000 square feet of private space on our second floor. We also have a huge network all around the world for professionals like yourself to utilize. So you're right. If you are an online business, but you still need to gain some productivity by coming in and meeting with your team or just getting out of the house, definitely come check us out at Spaces Midtown. It's www.spacesworks.com. Let us know that Alex sent you, and we'll offer you a 5-day test drive absolutely free. Again, that's spacesworks.com. And I'm Steve Choi. I appreciate it, Alex. Thanks again.
Yeah, that sounds like a great deal that you have going on right now. I'm going to put the website that Steve just said in the show description. Like I've said before, they are on Peachtree Street. They are a block north from the Fox Theater, so you cannot miss them on Peachtree Street here in Atlanta, Georgia. Check out Spaces Midtown if that is what you are needing right now. You know, it's disheartening and it could be a little depressing, and it's crazy at the same time that the threat of snow can hold hostage the 7th largest market in the country. So, buddy, I just want to know, how did you survive the so-called snowstorm or the snow day?
I actually couldn't sleep all night. I was so worried.
You were so worried.
Well, I'm from California, so I'll tell you my experience when. It's a funny story. When I first, the first snowpocalypse that took place when I was here, what was that, in 2010 or whatever it was. I can't remember.
Right.
2013, whatever it was. So my good friend happens to be a weather buff. So he had told me I had to go to work to downtown Atlanta, and he had told me, he says, "Hey man, you want to get out of downtown probably no later than 2:00." And I go, all right, cool, whatever. And again, I've never experienced anything. I came from California. The first time I ever saw snow was when I enlisted into the military and was sent to Germany. So the snow was all foreign to me, and I'm dead serious. So I wasn't one of those rich kids that got to go to snow places. So anyways,
Neither did I. So
nice. So anyway, so I was like, yeah, whatever, And so I was sitting there with a coworker, and she's from Chicago. And so I was talking to her, and I said, hey, I got to get ready to go because from what I understand, there's going to be like, some serious weather coming through. And she goes, I'm from Chicago. I was like, oh, yeah? She's like, yeah. Like, snow doesn't bother me. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, it bothers me because I'm from California, and my buddy, who is a weather buff, says I need to get out. So, I don't know, but I'm going to go listen to what he says. So I left downtown Atlanta at around 12:30, maybe 1 o'clock. By the time I got to Smyrna, there were snowflakes coming down. I was like, oh, this is pretty. This is cool. Like, yeah, right, cool. I went inside. My buddy was like, oh, hey, cool, you made it. It's like, yeah, man, thanks. I was like, but what didn't seem like it was a big deal. I'm going to go take a nap. Took a nap, woke up. The news was on, and he was like, it was like, oh, everybody's stuck on the highways, and the city shut down. It was like, I was like, what? Anyways, I talked to that coworker 2 days later. I was like, so, what time did you end up leaving and getting home? She's like, I didn't get home until like 11 at night. I was
dang.
like, I guess Chicago doesn't. I guess being from Chicago didn't help with that.
Dang. Well, I guess I'll tell you my story when there's another threat of snow on the horizon. Okay. But there was a pleasant surprise, I feel like, this past weekend that I got to see firsthand. It wasn't anything that had to do with the Super Bowl, even though the Super Bowl is pretty much here in full force. We're like 8, 9, 10 blocks away from all, like, I mean, because pretty much in that whole area, it's Tenny Olympic Park. Yeah, the epicenter of like the Super Bowl, and like they have the whole Georgia World Congress Center like shut down. Centennial Park looks like Super Bowl Disneyland right now. Nice. That's like the only way I can describe it. They had it closed down on Friday night, I guess.
Prepping
right,
for
had the elite media.
Well, right across from us, literally right now where we're sitting,
right,
there's like a huge tent near the Fox Theater,
and
and we don't know what that's supposed to be.
Well, that's for NFL Honors, which is going to be on Saturday night. So maybe
but what's a tent for?
Probably for some sort of party.
Nice.
We should just hang around here this weekend and just,
I think so.
Yeah, and then
think
just
so.
kind of like walk in.
Yeah,
what's up?
Let's just go ahead and get our sleeping bags.
Right,
and you can sleep here. Anyways, go ahead. What did you do?
In our voice recorder and microphone and be
I'm still saving up pennies to get to Shaq's Funhouse. It's $400, and I'm about at. I still got 380.
I thought about that last night because I was just like, you know who that? Because it's $500 to get into Shaq's Funhouse.
Right. Well, $400 for the cheap tickets.
Right. You know what I thought about that? I was like, it's mainly for like professional athletes because this is the thing. This is the thing when you have tons of money that you can just spend.
Yeah.
That it's like, even Todd Gurley. Like I even read an article about Todd Gurley who was like, yeah, we always go to the Super Bowl. Now it's just fun now it's fun just playing in it. Like
playing in it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like you have people like that just kind of go there. So it's like this is mainly attracted for other professional athletes.
Yeah.
That can or people that can just
big ballers.
Yeah, spend $500 just like that.
Hey, I mean, it's unlimited food and drink, so I mean, it could be worth it if I can manage to drink and eat $500 worth of stuff.
Right. If you have a nice savings account that you're just like, you know what, this is a once in a life. Yeah.
Right.
It's like YOLO. So
yeah.
It was a pleasant surprise though, and it was kind of like eating a Crunchwrap Supreme.
Crunchwrap Supreme.
Yeah, from Taco Bell.
Okay.
It's like you don't know about this thing, then you bite into it, and then you're just like, oh, okay, I like it.
Right, yeah.
And then by the end of it, you're full.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need anything else.
Yeah. Sounds like Vietnamese food.
Right. It was the skills competition for the Pro Bowl. I watched that because I was getting lunch, and I was at the bar, and I was just watching that going on. I'm like, man, this is really entertaining. Like, especially when you saw different quarterbacks throwing this one thing, I was like, man, I could just sit back here and watch this all day.
Who were the quarterbacks that were participating?
You had Andrew Luck. You
Nice.
had Deshaun Watson. You had Mitchell Trubisky, who I've actually seen live in college. You had Russell Wilson. And that's just going off the dome right now.
Yeah. Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes, yeah, Patrick Mahomes. Some reason he wasn't throwing. You also had Von Miller throwing that competition.
Von Miller, nice.
Yeah, he kind of stunk it up.
Oh, I was about to say.
I mean, the dude could throw and everything like that. He just wasn't accurate. Yeah.
There's a reason why he's playing in this position.
Right, middle linebacker.
Right. He's good at that though.
Right. He's big enough. I always loved the Old Spice commercials with him.
Nice.
So, if the skills competition could just be the Pro Bowl, because it's entertaining, like you get to see them play dodgeball and stuff, and
it's kind of like NBA All-Star Weekend. Like you kind of want to see the 3-point contest and the slam dunk contest, but the All-Star game is.
You don't really want to see the rookies versus the European or the world players.
I'm good on that too.
You're good on that too.
Yeah, but the skills thing is kind of cool.
The skills thing is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And it was especially cool for like the Pro Bowl because I saw the Pro Bowl and first of all, no one was there because it was raining.
Damn, we should have got tickets
for Orlando.
Yeah, we could have done it. It'd been a 13-hour ride.
It would have been. I would rather, if I want to go down to Orlando, I'd rather see Braves spring training, but that's just me.
Mm-hmm. Or Harry Potter.
I'm good on Harry Potter. I'm good on Harry Potter. I'll just put it that way. Actually, like my sister-in-law's actually seen that like 5 times.
Wow.
Me and my brother, who I've had on the show before, David Berger, they've at least been there 5 times.
Okay.
So,
hey, everybody has their
everyone has their thing, but it's like
I don't strike you as a nerdy person, so I guess it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So that was another inside joke we have between us. Moving on though. Yeah, the Pro Bowl to me wasn't really that exciting.
Okay.
And I think the weather had something to do with it. It seemed like though when it was in Hawaii, everyone turned out a couple of years ago.
Heck yeah.
Because it was in Hawaii.
Yeah, you get like a free trip to Hawaii.
Right.
And who doesn't want to do that?
Right, and I think like the locals were just like
they loved it.
Right, they loved it.
Because not a lot of people were flying to Hawaii to watch that game, so they probably got great tickets.
Oh yeah, they'd love football in Hawaii.
Yes, they do.
And then you've got good football players like Tua and Marcus Mariota, the dude that got catfished at Notre Dame. I can't think of his name, but he's having a decent pro career right now.
Is he?
Yeah, you got good football players out of Hawaii, and football. I mean, people in Hawaii love football.
That and the like Samoa and Tonga.
Right.
Like Junior Seau.
It
was funny that Junior Seau was so big in the Pacific Islander community that people would call themselves Junior. Like
really?
They were coming up like, I'm Junior. Even though they're like, their real name is like Opalata Oto. But they're like, I'm Junior because Junior Seau.
Right. Well, before we offend anyone.
Wow, that's her real name.
Okay. I got you, buddy. Yes, the Super Bowl is here in Atlanta, and by now it's in full force. They had the big media day on Monday. I heard the Barstool sports guys got kicked out because, well, they acted like morons.
Oh, what'd they do?
They, the president of Barstool, and another guy, they went into NFL media days and they had fake names, so they got kicked out.
Gosh.
So they did that to themselves. I was going to put it that way.
Acting a fool.
Acting a fool.
Acting a fool.
One of the guys was reaching out. He's like, "What's the best? Where are the pizza places around here?" Because he does pizza reviews and stuff like that.
Nice.
So I on ATL Box Score Twitter, I put a place out there that you can go.
Yeah, which one?
Buckhead Pizza Company.
Oh, you should get some free tickets or free meals.
Yeah,
Do that shout out there.
Yeah,
That free shout out there.
maybe you'll be the negotiator on that one, buddy.
Yeah.
You could you know
I
how
want
to
to go there though. I have not been there.
Yeah, we've been there before.
Oh, that place.
Yeah.
My bad.
We've
Delicious.
It
Guys,
is delicious.
If you give me 50% off, I'll come back. But it's delicious. It's absolutely delicious.
Oh, buddy. So if that's probably the biggest, I feel like, drama that happened with.
That's lame. Yeah.
So far, I mean, it's been a good Super Bowl week. If the biggest drama that I can think of.
No real controversy. Really.
Right.
I haven't heard like somebody say,
But the great debate is
shut it down.
The great debate is pretty much if the roof in Mercedes-Benz Stadium is going to be open or closed.
I say open.
It looks like it might. I mean, if it's great weather like this, that's not 20 below, or not 20 below, but it's like not 20 degrees, then I'd say keep it open.
I say keep it open.
Maybe for the first half.
Let them play.
For the first half, keep it open. Then in the second half, close it because it's going to get colder.
So I imagine whoever's running that is deciding what does Tom Brady perform worse in, open or closed?
That's an interesting question.
And they'll probably keep it whatever he does. Because I'm sure they're still a little bit bitter.
Well, when Peyton Manning beat him in 2007.
Mm-hmm. Peyton Manning?
Yeah, Peyton Manning, 2007 in the
AFC
Championship. Beat Tom Brady in a closed in an indoor stadium.
Okay.
So maybe that's a little bit of a reference point.
Because I'm sure
that's kind of ancient, but
I'm sure outside your bro,
the Patriots.
There's not a lot of Brady love here.
Right. Well, then Houston was an indoor stadium, and I hate bringing up the Super Bowl, but Houston, the last time they won a Super Bowl in an indoor-outdoor stadium, they did win. So
okay.
Because no. Okay, indoor-outdoor stadium, Houston. I'm going off the dome, guys. Indoor-outdoor stadium, Houston. Brady won. Enclosed stadium, Super Bowl, Minnesota.
Yeah,
Brady
we should
lost.
Look that up.
So right now, in recent history, indoor-outdoor stadiums, he's 1-1.
Okay. But was the roof open in Houston?
The roof was open in Houston.
So basically, he's
because
only outdoor.
Lady Gaga did like the dive-in thing.
I remember that. That's right.
So,
okay.
But it feels like, just from a local standpoint and everything like that, that the Super Bowl itself is probably the biggest recruiting tool right now for the University of Georgia, because it seems like when the Super Bowl happens, it's pretty much going to be a Georgia reunion, having three guys that play key positions in that 2014 season with Todd Gurley, David Andrews, and Sony Michel.
Wow.
I saw an interesting stat about, I wouldn't say stat, but comment that they made at Media Days that my brother David told me, that he was just like, you think about it. Sony Michel has played the biggest games of his career, the SEC championship in 2007 in this building, the Mercedes-Benz, that's what I'm referencing, the national championship in 2018 in Mercedes-Benz, and now the Super Bowl in Mercedes-Benz in 2019.
Nice.
Now, also, too, outside of Georgia being running back U, and that has to be really attractive for kids who are running backs who know that it's like you could get drafted by a team that can go pretty far in the NFL just playing at Georgia. Kind of like Matt Castle just being the backup quarterback for the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Or your guy in San Francisco right now, Garoppolo.
Yeah.
I'm doing that, guys. I'm just going off the
Straight
dome
off the
today.
dome.
Just straight off the dome.
Straight off the Georgia dome.
So they still call like Mercedes-Benz the dome. People do
Why?
around here.
Yeah.
I guess because it's just gotten used to
I
it.
call it the Benz.
But the biggest recruiting ploy that has happened so far, and the biggest probably news from a local standpoint coming out of Super Bowl week has been what Bill Belichick said about the University of Georgia. And I am getting my info off of Fansided, an article on there talking about that. And this is the quote by Bill Belichick about the Georgia program. I think Kirby's program is excellent to prepare guys for the National Football League. The way that they practice, the way that they hold each other accountable is similar and consistent to the way that we try to do it.
Nice.
So that's huge. That is Kirby should be given Bill Belichick a hundo.
Nice.
Well, maybe like five hundos.
Five
Handshake for repping him. By the way, too, Bill Belichick will be at the Georgia Coaches Clinic, so maybe that's one of the reasons why he was repping Kirby.
There's another example of Georgia talent and being represented, and that's good old Sean McVay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Going to Marist High School here.
That's right. So
You also,
this is a Georgia thing.
yeah. You also have a guy from the Patriots, Shaq Lawson,
Okay.
that played for Tech. So
Nice.
so there's your little slide in there for Tech people if you're wondering where we're missing you at.
Any Georgia State guys?
Not yet.
Oh, one of the ushers. Okay, so but yeah,
Yeah, what were you gonna say, buddy?
so no, it's gonna be a great representation for the state of Georgia.
Yeah,
Georgia in the
it's
house.
showing now that it's like Georgia's starting to be what Texas was back in the 80s and 70s, I feel like, when it comes to football.
Gotcha.
They're sort of trading places.
Yeah, I mean, I think it links back to a conversation you had about, Georgia being, with all this industry coming here, with both, tech companies and the Hollywood, film companies coming here, that, the Georgia scene is just so metropolitan and so diverse nowadays. And so with that comes, a lot of talent that otherwise would stay in the Texas or Oklahoma.
Right.
You know.
Well, football's always kind of been like the favorite son, but now it's just now it's starting to really blow up, and
It's awesome.
also basketball too. A lot of great college basketball players come out of this state as well.
Yeah.
And speaking of college basketball, today we're going to have Ned Kaish on the show to talk some more about college basketball and get his opinions. And always love having Ned on the show because I mean, he can just like name. You throw out a team out there, he can name like the starting five just off the dome.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean,
especially in college.
Right. You just throw a team out there, and he can just tell you stats and how they played and everything like that.
Wow,
So
that's awesome.
yeah, young guy in this business, has a lot of great energy, a lot of great
Up and comer
enthusiasm that he brings to the show. So I'm really happy to have him on. He makes me look better, even though I did something that made myself look dumb.
What was that?
We can talk about it some other time.
Okay.
Got to move on, buddy. I'm sorry, buddy.
It's all right.
So, with that, we're just going to get into a little bit of the Senior Bowl. So the Senior Bowl also was this weekend. The Senior Bowl that really matters. The Reese's Senior Bowl. And, man, if you haven't checked out their uniforms for that, you need to check them out because that orange really stands out. I think Florida Gators should take some notes on those orange Adidas uniforms. Just saying.
Nice.
It's a nice shade of orange. I'll just put it that way.
Have to check it out.
Yeah, for a Georgia fan, you're probably that's probably a little bit of a foreign thing for me to compliment orange. But anyways, nothing really stood out to me with this Senior Bowl. And Jonathan Ledbetter was one of the guys that from Georgia who was getting a lot of attention the way he was practicing and just attacking things and treating it like a mini combine. But you really didn't see that much of the performance during the game. And obviously from the quarterback play, I saw Will Greer. It feels like he hasn't really missed a beat. Also, too, Andrew Luck. I mean, not Andrew Luck. You had Drew Lock from Missouri do some decent things, but it's like it was a game where they really didn't light up the stat sheet at all. And it's pretty obviously you're going to have a limited playing time because you have huge rosters and everything like that. You're trying to get guys in and out of there as much as possible and trying to win a game. But we had Sean McAvoy on our show recently this past Friday and talking about the Senior Bowl, and this is what he had to say, and this is probably the most important thing about the Senior Bowl that you're going to get out of it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing they're going to look at is the off-the-field piece. They're going to spend so much time just interviewing these guys, right? Sitting down, having them talk through offensive scheme, get them up on the whiteboard, have them draw up their favorite plays and talk through the progression. This is one of the big things that these offensive coordinators and these owners look for. You think if you're taking a quarterback here in the first round, this is a guy who's going to be the face of your franchise. He's going to have to deal with a ton of adversity and a ton of pressure, whether he plays well and obviously even more so if he doesn't. You're going to need, you're asking a 20 to 22-year-old, young man to lead a team full of, 30-year-olds, right? That have been in the league 6-8 years. So that's one of the biggest kind of question marks for any of these guys they bring in is I understand what they're able to do physically on the field. I like their skill set. They can make all the throws, but now where are they with a leadership standpoint, with their grasp of being able to learn an NFL-style offense, and kind of how quickly can they get themselves in a position to get on the field? I think a lot of these guys inside the interview room is where they really kind of make or break where their draft stock is.
That's pretty much what the Senior Bowl is. It's just the beginning of an interview process. And that's probably the most significant thing that you're going to get from the Reese's Senior Bowl, even if you didn't see a guy play that you wanted to see get more playing time. Well, they have heavy rosters, and they want everyone to get playing time. And all these guys that were on these rosters started for 3 or 4 years and stuff. Because, I mean, you really didn't see that much of Jarrett Stidham, and to me, Jarrett Stidham really wasn't impressive. Will Grier was pretty good. Drew Lock, I thought was decent. But you really didn't. I mean, you really didn't see hear about Jonathan Ledbetter, even though you heard that Jonathan Ledbetter was doing really well in practices. I thought he would make a more of an impact. But also too, I for some reason I forgot about this when we were talking about the Pro Bowl. Austin Hooper, a guy that we sent to the Pro Bowl, Atlanta Falcon, he actually got a touchdown pass. So keep Austin Hooper around because we need guys like that to make plays for Matt Ryan. But right now, we're actually going to have Ned Kaish coming on the show and talking all about college basketball. Love Ned Kaish being on the show. Love his energy that he brings because he definitely helps me out with this college basketball stuff. I pay attention to it. I watch it. I just don't really have strong opinions like he does, but definitely appreciate him being on the show. If you're wondering who I am, just rambling on and stuff like that, I'm Alex Berger, and this is the ATL Box Score podcast with Alex Berger, and glad that you could listen to the show today. Glad that we're have you on if you're having us in your ride home or your commute to somewhere. Glad that we could join your phone today. And but right now we're going to bring on Ned Kaish. This is the ATL Box Score podcast. Well, now joining the conversation here on the ATL Box Score is Ned Kaish, our college basketball analyst, and I know a lot of Super Bowl stuff's been going on, a lot of Super Bowl talk, but there's still college basketball going on, and a lot of competitive college basketball going on, and March is going to be here before you know it. So breaking it all down is Mr. Ned Kaish. Ned, how are you doing today? And did you survive the so-called snowstorm or rain that we had here in the metro area?
I'm doing well. I did not go get my milk and bread, but thankfully survived the snowpocalypse yesterday. So all that was good news. Found some time to watch some college hoops, and we got a great Saturday slate before the Super Bowl on Sunday for all the sports fans who are needing their fix.
Right. Yeah. Before you came on, you said you had a couple beers to keep you company. I guess that's better than milk, right?
Yeah, I just figured, if it was going to get really cold, I needed an extra warmth layer, so I had a couple cold ones to help me out with that.
Sounds good, buddy. Now, Kentucky has recently jumped back into the top 10, and they land at 7 right now. I just want to get your thoughts on Kentucky. Them having a pretty good game. That was the focal point of this past weekend was their game against Kansas, which they won. And what do you think of Kentucky? And is there a clear path for a championship for this Kentucky team?
Kentucky, they're riding a 7-game winning streak, and they're playing really well. And when you look at, over that 7-game winning streak, they had to go to Auburn, beat Auburn, and they played Mississippi State, who's a top 25 team, and then they beat Kansas, who's a top 10 team. So, this Kentucky team is really, really starting to play well. The emergence of Tyler Hero for them has been big because he really can just score in a variety of ways. Obviously, Ashton Hagans, who we've talked about a couple times, running the point for them, really starting the energy with his defense has been really big for Kentucky. And then P.J. Washington inside, almost averaging a double-double. He's been dominant for them. So, I think this Kentucky team kind of flew under the radar, which has been nice for them because they can just kind of keep playing and getting better. And they took a couple losses early and nobody really batted an eye. I mean, besides the Duke blowout loss, the other two losses were 1 or 2 points. So this has been a good team all year. I think their most clear path to getting a championship is to win the SEC. And I think that should give them a 1 seed, especially if they do it, with only 1 or 2 more losses throughout the year.
Trying to win the SEC regular season or the SEC tournament?
Yeah, I think regular season. I think if they can, between them and Tennessee, I think one of those 2 teams is going to get the 1 seed, and I think it's probably going to be whichever one of them wins the conference regular season, would be my guess. So, for Kentucky, they're almost just playing with house money. It seems like no one's really giving them a ton of respect right now, despite being ranked number 7 in the country.
Right. Now, do you see Kentucky leapfrogging? Because they play Tennessee next month on the 16th, but until that time, do you see them either leapfrogging Michigan State, Michigan, or Gonzaga to land at least like in the 4th spot behind Virginia?
Yeah, I definitely think they can. Michigan State and Michigan, they play in that tough Big Ten. So they're going to kind of start to beat each other up. They're going to play each other. They're going to play, who Michigan just lost to Ohio State last night, I think. They beat Ohio State last night. But they got to go to Iowa, and they've got Wisconsin in a couple weeks. So I could definitely see Kentucky getting ahead of Michigan and Michigan State. Gonzaga, maybe a little bit tougher, just because Gonzaga is, obviously in conference isn't as tough, and Gonzaga does have the big win against Duke, and one of their losses is against Tennessee, who's number 1. So until Gonzaga loses another game, it may be tough for Kentucky to crack that top 4, but who knows? A win over Tennessee, I think, will definitely get them in the top 4.
Mm-hmm. Now, since Tennessee is the number 1 team in the nation, and this is totally odd for me. I know they've had good programs over the years with Bruce Pearl. With Tennessee being the number 1 team in the nation, do you see them being the number 1 team when it comes to that second weekend in March and it's Selection Sunday, or do you feel like they'll get bumped off that spot? Someone will upset them in the SEC because, right now, the SEC where it's at, a team like Tennessee could rise above outside of playing Kentucky and just totally take control of that conference. But do you see them being that number 1 team throughout the season?
I do. I really like Tennessee. Their big men, Schofield and Williams, are really good. They've got complementary guard play that just get the job done. They play at Kentucky and they have Kentucky at home. So if one of those teams can sweep that series, they're obviously going to get the nod. If they split it, it'll kind of be interesting to see how things come down to the end of the year. When you look at Tennessee, they've got a really tough back end of their schedule. Once they get into February, they close going to a top 25 LSU team. They got to go to Mississippi. They play Kentucky. They play Mississippi State, who's a top 25 team, and they got to go to Auburn, who you'll think will kind of have things figured out by early March. So Tennessee, both has the ability to stay at number 1 with the schedule in front of them because it's tough, but they also have the ability to fall if they drop 2 or 3 of their remaining, 7-8 games towards the last stretch of the season.
Do you feel like that Tennessee is ready for all the expectations and just can handle the mentality of once you're on top of the pedestal that everyone's trying to knock you down?
Yeah, I think they can. I think their veteran leadership and Rick Barnes being the head coach, having had success before, they're going to be used to handling it. We saw it a little bit when they first got ranked number 1 and they had to go to Vandy. And I think that game went to overtime and they ended up winning it. So I think for them, that was almost a good thing for their first game as number 1 to be on the road against an in-state team. because that's really going to be, one of the best shots you're going to see all year. And they took it. They took the punches and counterpunched and came away with a win. And they've won, two more since then. They were on the road at South Carolina, who we mentioned playing really well in conference play, and beat up on South Carolina. So, yeah, I really like this Tennessee team. In fact, the more I watch them, the better I think they are.
Now, Duke has a possibility of they could pretty much win out with their schedule the way it looks like right now. Their toughest team they're going to have to play is obviously North Carolina, and obviously playing Virginia again. But if say we're in a scenario where they're pretty much going to win out the rest of their schedule, would you see Duke and Tennessee basically flip-flopping at all?
I don't, maybe. And I think a lot of times when you think about how the 1 seeds get ranked, they obviously have the number 1 overall 1 seed, the number 2 overall 1 seed, so on and so forth. I think a lot of that comes down to, maybe how you do in your conference tournament, whether you lose the semis or whether you win the championship. That may be the difference between being the number 1 overall seed and the number 3, number 1 seed. But I think Duke and Tennessee, unless they really start to falter, they'll both guarantee themselves 1 seeds. I even think Virginia, especially if Virginia can beat Duke and they can split this series, each of them winning a home game. I think Virginia is a 1 seed as well. And then that 4th spot, is kind of open. Kentucky's trying to crash that party. Gonzaga's trying to hang in there, and then potentially the winner of the Big Ten could get that last spot. So. I think it's still pretty open. I think Duke or Virginia will have one of them. I think Tennessee will likely have one of them. And then the other 2 are kind of, there's a couple teams juggling for those last 2 1 seeds.
Mm-hmm. Now, it seems like Duke right now is just in a spot in their schedule. And North Carolina, I guess you could say the same thing for them, but it's like they're playing the teams that they should beat.
Yeah, and sometimes, that's tough because, they obviously had the big game against Virginia 2 weeks ago. And then
Right.
and then since then it's been Pittsburgh, Georgia Tech, Notre Dame, and then their next 2 are St. John's and Boston College. So kind of like you said, 5 teams who, they're in your conference. They're good teams. St. John's is actually a very strong team this year. But, it's tougher to get up for them. And then after those 5 games, you got to get up for going to number 3 Virginia and then going to number 15 Louisville. So, I think for Duke, they just need to make sure they continue to play kind of their brand of basketball and make sure, more so than a lot of times playing an opponent, they're just kind of playing the score. They're making sure they're doing the right things. They're making sure, they're getting some blowout wins because that's the way that they should win when they play the right way. So I think these next 2 games, just making sure Duke's playing sharp and crisp, are going to be really important for them going into Charlottesville next Saturday.
Now, Duke has always had great players, and that's still the case this year. Do you feel like, just from a recruiting standpoint, obviously if you can handle the academics, but that if you go there, you could possibly, by the time your college career ends, that you could be a lottery pick going into the NBA. Do you think that's attractive for kids that can handle the academic side?
Going to Duke to do that? Sorry, is that what you were saying?
Yes, going to Duke. And
Absolutely. And I actually was having this conversation with somebody the other day. I think for Duke, the most prime example for this is Marquise Bolden, who's their junior big man. He's really started to play well the last couple weeks. He only averages about 5 points and 5 rebounds a game. But he's a guy who came in as a freshman, and everybody thought he was going to be a lottery pick, top 10 draft pick, 5-star recruit, McDonald's All-American. In his first 2 years, he got on the court a little bit, but he never did a whole lot to really stand out. And in this year, he's just really exploded on the scene. He'll have games where he goes for double-doubles. He's a great shot blocker. He blocks 2 shots a game. And I think for somebody like him, going against Marvin Bagley in practice every day last year, or Wendell Carter, and going against guys who go on to become draft picks, that makes you better. And maybe you thought you were going to go pro after your freshman year and you're not ready, but a guy like Bull to keep working. He could go pro after this year and make good money. He could go pro after his senior year and make even better money. So I definitely think if you're committed to it and you can handle the schoolwork, going to a program like Duke where you're going to continue to get better because of the competition and practice every day is a huge, a huge advantage and something these players want to go do.
There's something I've been asking you for a while, and I feel like it's appropriate right now because just where we're at in the schedule, there's not a lot of huge games going on. And since we're on the Duke program, Coach K, it didn't seem like it at the beginning. He was the new kid on the block when he came in there in the 80s where the ACC was controlled pretty much by North Carolina, but he made a name for himself and a staple for himself at Duke, and he's one of the last probably relics of that time in college basketball. So I just want to know from you, how many years do you think Coach K has, or when do you think he will retire?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I feel like for the past 5 or 10 years, everybody's kept saying, "Oh, he's got 5 or 10 more years. He's got 5 or 10 more years," and he just continues to do extremely well, and he looks great. And I think a big thing for him was doing the USA basketball stuff. I think that gave him a new challenge, and it kind of, in a sense, made him feel young again, where he had to, learn a whole new kind of basketball, learn how to relate to these players, how to get all these players to work together. So I think something like that for him really extended his career. Now, he's done with that. He's just on to the Duke stuff. I mean, I could still see him coaching. Of course, I'm going to say it's another 5 to 10 years. I would say another 5, maybe 10's a lot. Maybe another 4 to 6 would be my guess. And he's really starting to groom some good coaches. There's a lot of coaches who are now head coaches at D1 schools who are his assistant coaches at Duke who could come back and take over that job. So I'd say 4 to 6 more years. But he's been doing it so impressively for so long. It's hard to really feel confident about venturing a guess on that.
Yeah, it's kind of like Nick Saban-esque because the guy's old, been around for a while, and he still does it at a high level. It doesn't look like, yeah, he's aged and everything like that, but it's like that doesn't show up in his coaching.
Yeah, and I think it's even a little more different with Krzyzewski because he's been at Duke, like for the same school for so long, and really made them special. I mean, obviously what Saban is doing at Alabama is unbelievable, but I mean, Alabama football was has been winning national championships since forever, since Bear Bryant was there.
Right,
and,
right.
While Duke was, all right, they went to some Final Fours before Krzyzewski got there. I mean, they were never the top 10 school. They were never, 20 Final Fours in 30 years. They were never 5 national championships. So I think, it's both for him and for, Duke fans, the university, everything. It's going to be a really interesting time when he steps down, because for so many people, I mean, all they've known about Duke basketball is Krzyzewski, and when he leaves, it's going to be really interesting to see how everybody reacts, who comes in next, how long that coach has before they may move on. So I think everyone's just kind of trying to relish the years that Coach K stays at Duke for now, except for I guess every UNC and fan that hates Duke wants him to get out.
Right. Yeah, and when you think of Duke, you also think of Christian Laettner, but we're not going to talk about that. Now, on the other side of Tobacco Road, you have North Carolina, who always seems to – it's always been a pattern recently where at the beginning of the year, they do okay. They do enough to get by at the beginning of the season. At the beginning of the year, they lose some games that you're like, really? But – now they're starting to get back on track, and like I said, they're pretty much Duke and Virginia, are they like the only hurdles that they really have to get by with their season. The rest of the schedule for North Carolina looks very, very winnable. Do you see them as a 2 or 3 seed going into the tournament?
Yeah, I do. When you look at your schedule or their schedule, like you just said, Virginia and Duke, obviously tough. There's a game against Florida State in there that may be tough for them. Florida State's playing pretty well these days. It's at home for UNC, so that helps. But yeah, I think UNC is a 2 or 3 seed, no doubt. Even some of their losses, it's to Michigan, who's a top 10 team. It's to Kentucky, who's a top 10 team. And while maybe those games weren't the closest, it says they're willing to go out and challenge themselves. They'll go play at Michigan, although I think that was part of the Big Ten SEC or ACC challenge. But they're a 2 or 3 seed unless they start stumbling down the gates. I think the only thing that could really drop them is if they lose to Duke and Virginia, and both those losses are double-digit losses, and they look like they can't compete with the top seed. I don't expect that to be the case, so I would expect Carolina to be a 3 seed at the lowest.
Okay. I was almost tempted to go to that Georgia Tech UNC game.
Yeah, last
because
night,
last night, because I'm just like, man, that's the only really opportunity I have just to see North Carolina play. Eventually, I'm going to do that one day.
Yeah, I know.
I thought it was going to be this year.
I was pretty, Duke comes down to Tech a lot, and it's always funny to see that place fill up with all the Duke fans, and I think it was like that last night. A lot of Carolina Blue was in that crowd last night.
Wasn't Duke here this past weekend?
No, Tech played at Duke.
Oh, Tech played at Duke. I
Yep.
just saw that. The reason why I'm asking, I just saw that at the gym, and I didn't really watch that game, so that's why I have you on the show.
Tech actually led that game by 1 at halftime and played pretty well. A big part of that was Duke shot the ball poorly, but Georgia Tech hung in with Duke a lot better than I expected them to.
Right. And that's what I kind of want to talk about next is Georgia Tech, because now they got through the tough part of their schedule. FSU is going to be a minefield. Clemson is they should handle Clemson. Notre Dame, I feel like, is going to be a minefield, and then they have to play FSU and. So, it looks like at the end of their schedule, too, that it's like you're probably going to have, I want to say, 4 or 5 losses.
Yeah, and I think Georgia Tech really needs to take advantage of the next couple games. Florida State, Clemson, Notre Dame. I know Florida State and Notre Dame are missing some pretty key players. Whether they'll be back for these games or not, I'm not sure, but if these are teams that are shorthanded, Tech's got to be able to take advantage of that and pick up a couple wins. They're sitting at 3-5 in the conference, and kind of as you look through their schedule, you see on the road at NC State, on the road at Virginia, on the road at Virginia Tech. Those are kind of 3 games where you kind of think that you're going to put a loss next to those. Which gives them 8 losses, and then they need to win all those other games to finish, right around 500 in conference and give themselves a chance to be in the conversation for a bubble team. So we'll see. A tough part of their schedule was, Duke, UNC, but also before Duke, UNC, they lost 3 out of 4 to Virginia Tech, Clemson, and Louisville. So they've really kind of shot themselves in the foot, losing some really winnable games and games that I think the tournament committee would expect them to win if they want to be in.
Right. Now, with the SEC Big 12 challenge, that you had a lot of premier schools in the SEC win big games against Big 12 teams like Tennessee and Kentucky. But Georgia, surprisingly, got a pretty good victory, I would have to say. And this is probably one of the things that you can kind of hang your hat on with Tom Crean is, they're not really going to beat any of the dominant teams in the conference, but the big games on the big stages, they seem to pull through.
Yeah, and it was kind of like I think we said it last week how sometimes stepping out of conference in the middle of conference season can be really good for you. And teams do it with stuff like this. Duke's doing it playing St. John's coming up this week. So just to play somebody who doesn't know you as well, you can kind of just worry about your game. You can play your stuff, and I think I think that's kind of what happened with Georgia. I mean, they put up 98 points, which is the most they've put up in quite some time. And I think just the freedom of being able to go play and not think about too much of where this is going to put us in the conference, win or lose, just makes it a little easier to play. Now they followed that up by losing by 10 to Arkansas, who's a decent team. So again, Georgia's, they're putting it together. I think I did see something that Georgia's first 6 games of their conference schedule was the toughest start to a conference schedule in the country. And when you look at it, it was at Tennessee, it was Vandy, it was at Auburn, it was versus Kentucky, LSU. So certainly that didn't help anything for Georgia, but they're fighting an uphill battle. They don't have a terribly tough schedule, but it's not like they've played well enough for me to really expect them to win a lot of these games.
Right. Yeah, I was really impressed, and it seems like though, and maybe I know we talked about this before, but hitting those 3-point shots are the difference between living and dying for Georgia basketball in the going forward.
Yeah, and Tyree Crump, who's their their 3-point specialist, he shot 6 of 8 from deep in the Texas game and for 21 points, and they shot 70% overall from deep. So that is a big part of their game. They don't have a ton of kind of guys you think of as 3-point shooters. So a lot of times when they're not shooting the 3-ball well, I feel like it's just because they're not getting that many open looks. If they can penetrate or get the ball inside and pass out of the post, then they can shoot the ball well because they're just going to get a lot cleaner looks, a lot more set looks without a hand in the face.
Yeah. Because watching this Georgia team, I don't know if it's just me, and I don't really have any stats in front of me, but it seemed like majority of the time, I would probably have to say 60% of the time when they go for a 3, they always miss. But now it seems like they're starting to turn over those numbers. And I just want to know, with like Georgia's success on Saturday, do you feel like this Georgia team is buying into what Tom Crean is selling them?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's really been a point in any Georgia game, and I know they got blown out by Tennessee, where you felt like you were watching a team who wasn't competing or didn't want to be there or didn't like what their coach was doing. So I think it's all heading in the right direction. I think what he's done for Rayshawn Hammond and Nick Claxton as big men and making them so much better, I think is a really good thing for that team, for the whole team to see, wow, this guy can really develop talent. And he'll take the talent we have here. It's not like when Crean got the job, he, went out and got a bunch of recruits late or had recruits transfer their commitment to Georgia. Crean just kind of rocked with the team he was given, and he's going to coach them as hard as he can. And I think a lot of times that's all a player can ask for in respect of a new coach.
Do you feel like that he's attracting? I can understand if like this next recruiting cycle is going to be tough for him. Do you feel like he's attracting though the attention of guys in high school right now that are top recruits that are just sophomores and juniors? Do you think like he's attracting those guys to the Georgia program?
In all honesty, I would say not yet, because if you're one of those top recruits, you're not really. The team that's 1-6 in the SEC and 10-10 overall isn't really on the top of your list.
Right.
But I think, if Crean is in those gyms and talking to those kids and I don't know that much about Tom Crean. I've heard he's a good guy. I know he coaches really hard. So, a lot of times in the college basketball games, the recruiting is about building the relationship and which player do coaches or which coach do players trust most. And that's a lot of times, who they're going to go play for. And so I think that's one, just, Crean getting out and recruiting and starting a relationship and talking to these kids. But I think it's also these kids, these recruits, try to talk to the players on the team. Hey, what do you think of Coach Crean? Do you think the program's going the right way? Are you going to be staying? Are you leaving? All that kind of stuff. So I think Crean really needs to make sure he wins over his current team first. And I think that's really going to help him in the recruiting path.
Now, back to the top 25. A team that kind of stands out to me on this list and who's kind of in this region, I'm a little surprised that Houston is ranked as high as they are. And they're the only team right now from the American Conference in the top 25. So tell me more about this Houston team, Ned.
Yeah, so it's a Houston team that's kind of flying under the radar. And I think the biggest reason is they don't have a ton of quality wins. If you kind of go through their schedule, their best win was over Oregon. Oregon's best player, Bull, was out for the year, so they've really kind of faded. So I think the biggest reason they're ranked, still kind of low, even with being 20-1, is because they just don't have a really tough schedule. Their only loss is at Temple, who is a good team. So that's not a terrible loss, and they're going to have a revenge game against them tomorrow night. But Houston's led by veteran backcourt. So they've got a junior guard, Armani Brooks, and a senior guard, Corey Davis. And they're both averaging 15 points a game. And they've been, leading this team and led the scoring, almost every night for these guys. They shoot the ball well. If they're not shooting well, they can get to the hoop. So I think this is a good Houston Cougars team. I think, I don't know if they're going to get the respect that their record would say when it comes to what seed they get in the tournament. But I think part of that is just because the committee's a little bit unsure how they'd fare against, a top 25 team who's been playing top 25 teams all season.
Mm-hmm. And also, too, how real is Mississippi State?
I think they're decent. I don't think they're going to be going to the Sweet 16 or Elite 8 or anything. But they're a solid team. They've got some good big men. Adu is one of them. I'm trying to think. Adu, and anyways, I'll think of it in a second. But I mean,
that's okay. I know I'm just throwing that out there.
They're getting there. They're playing well. Weatherspoon is kind of their guy who's been leading them. The senior guard averages, between 15 and 20 a game. So, I think Mississippi State is good. I think they're deserving of being a top 25 team with only 5 losses and a lot of those losses to, quality teams or being a road game. So, Mississippi State, they'll make some noise is probably the best way to describe this team.
No, just ending the conversation, did you see last night, and I can't remember which game it was, but one of the college basketball games, they ranked and gave seeds for the celebrity attendance, like Ashley Judd was a number 1 seed. Did you see that at all?
I did not see that. I wish I had, though, because I'm sure it was. If it was Jay Billis, I'm sure it was very comical.
Jay Billis was his play-by-play guy. I can't remember his name.
Schulman or whoever he was doing the game with, or Boog Chong, maybe.
Right. They ranked. They seeded the different celebrities, and Ashley Judd was going against the Gaines family from Baylor. You also had Matthew McConaughey in there,
Texas.
And a couple other people that from Texas, and a couple other people that I can't remember off the top of my head, but just wanted to see if you could see that because it was pretty humorous.
No, that is funny, and they always do good stuff like that. But it's kind of funny, as you were saying. I was just kind of looking through the top 25, and you think about all these teams, and it seems like a lot of these teams do kind of have a super fan. Whether it's like you said, Ashley Judd with Kentucky, or Kim Jong, the actor, is always at those Duke games, and McConaughey. So it is kind of funny to see how a lot of these schools almost have like a live mascot in a sense.
Right. Well, they actually had Toby Keith for Oklahoma in there.
Yep.
I know
Yep.
he was ranked pretty low, but the funny thing is, you mentioned Kim. What?
Jung or
Help me out here. Yeah. He wasn't on the list, and Jay Billis was like, what about my man?
No love. I'm sure Duke was just tired of, or everyone's just tired of seeing Duke on all those lists, anyways.
Maybe his celebrity isn't just big enough. So.
Yeah, that's also fair, I guess. I guess the Hangover movies are a couple of years old now at this point.
Right. Well, and he was on Community as the professor.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Right. Well, I know Community wasn't like a big time show, but that was actually going on when I was in college, so I was all over that. But
skipping class.
But anyways,
TV.
right. So anyways, what are you watching this weekend?
Yeah. So this weekend has some
outside of the Super Bowl.
Yeah. No, they have some good ones. I kind of briefly mentioned Duke and St. John's. I think Duke wins that one pretty big, but St. John's has a guard, Shamari Pons, who can, take any game over. I think he's gone for over 40 3 or 4 times this year. He averages like 20, 25 a game. So that's just kind of what I'm looking for. Virginia Tech, NC State is kind of the big ACC game. Virginia Tech's ranked 12th. NC State's ranked 23rd. It's at NC State. And both these teams, I think this is a big game for them because I think the winner of that one, really solidifies themselves as potentially the 4th or 5th best team in the SEC and will give themselves a good seed moving forward. North Carolina going to Louisville. That's a redemption game. Louisville obviously came in and blew North Carolina out at the Dean Dome. So I expect North Carolina to go in and get their revenge in that one. We talked about Mississippi. We talked about Mississippi State. They're going to Mississippi. So that'll be a good one, a rivalry game. Ole Miss is a team that's kind of been on the fringe of getting ranked and not being ranked off and on throughout the year. So but for them, this is a really good chance to get back in that top 25 and give themselves a chance to be in a good spot come the tournament. So those are kind of the good ones. There's a lot of games I would say this week that a win at the end of January going into February can really turn your season around. So I think this is a big weekend for a lot of teams to get a signature win and start to change the narrative of their season.
Well, thanks for being on the show today. This is why we have you on, because I'm not strong in college basketball and you are. So always fun having you on the show. You just bring a lot of great energy and a lot of great college football. I was about to say college football, college basketball knowledge. So where can we find you on Soch? Where can we hit up your Instagram and Twitter page?
The Twitter's at the real Ned Kaish. Find me on there. I'm thankful. Like I said, you let me come on and ramble, so I feel like I have a reason to watch a bunch of college basketball now instead of just doing it for giggles, if you will.
Hey, when I started getting in this business, I was like, yes, those days of playing NCAA football for 8 hours straight are finally paying off. So thanks for being on the show today, Ned.
No doubt about it. Take care, Alex.
Well, in case you're wondering, we did not have a show at the beginning of the week because we were dealing with some logistical drama, and that kind of hindered us from doing a show. So we didn't have a show, and this is making up for it. That's why we talked about the Pro Bowl, Senior Bowl, and all that stuff, and also catching up on the Super Bowl. But right now, we are recording the show Wednesday, January 30th. At 1:06. So right now, Roger Goodell is addressing the state of the NFL, kind of like the NFL's version of the State of the Union. With that being said, we're not current on that. So if there was any drama that went down with Roger Goodell's State of the Union, because right now he's a very polarizing figure in the NFL. We'll talk about that in our Super Bowl show, our Super Bowl preview show on Friday, which is Football Friday, and that's when we roll out all of our football content. So to be sure to check back with us on Friday, or maybe you're listening to this on Friday, so check out Football Friday that we have here at the ATL Box Score. And it's going to be a great time. We're going to bring back Ab Stanley. We're going to have Sean McAvoy break down the Patriots offense and Tom Brady. And so it's going to be a great time here at the ATL Box Score. We're probably going to be on location, but we're working on that right now. So with that being said, be sure to check back with us on Friday or Saturday morning, because we're probably going to get that show out around 5-ish. That's when we should have our show out, but we're going to try to get that a little bit sooner. But Friday's always crazy around here, but by 5 o'clock we should have that show out for you. So right now, this is where we need your help, guys. Be sure to like us wherever you see this podcast on social media. And just want to thank Steve Choi, Ned Kaish for coming on the show. Be sure to holler at them on social. Also, too, the place where you can have your voice heard and respond and give your opinion, because I want to try to make this show as interactive as possible. And right now, just in this internet world that we're in, the comment section is the best place to do that. Someday I'm going to figure out how we can take live calls here on the show, but until that day comes, be sure to put how you feel on the comment section. If you want to talk about Super Bowl, Senior Bowl, Pro Bowl skills thing, then be sure to put that in the comment section, because we would love to hear from you guys and hear your thoughts and opinions about just how you feel about the show. And be sure to put that in the comment section, because there's a lot of opinions about sports, Super Bowl, and just stuff that's going on right now in the sports world. So also to check us out on iTunes, Google Play. We're on the main podcasting platforms, and be sure to subscribe if you like what you're hearing. That we are we're a little bit different flavor than Sports Talk Radio, but we try to hit everything that Sports Talk Radio talks about, and we're a podcast that is growing. Also, too, we're like PBS right now. We operate off of donations, so if you want to hit us up with that, if you can support us that way, that'd be awesome. I'll put a link to that in our show description. So be sure to hit that up if you would want to donate to this program, and I will love you forever. Right now, we're working on a promotional system for subscribers, so stay tuned with that. So hit us up and become a subscriber, because now you can get the ATL Box Score on a regular basis, and you get to hear my voice a lot. So we'd appreciate if you could do that, and I hope that you guys are making it through the cold weather. It's going to get better at the end of the week, and be sure to check back with us on Football Friday, and it's going to be a real fun time. So with that being said, episode 22 is out.